Good evening, everyone. Sure is good to see everyone out this evening. We have welcome to everyone here, especially if you're visiting with us. We're glad to have you this evening. We have classes for all ages. Most of the children's age classes are down the hall there, and a college age class here, and a young adults class there as well. So in a moment here, Paul will be teaching our class here in the auditorium, and we're going to sing you don't care what number, In the Desert of Sorrow and Sin. We're going to sing all three verses of that, and then Paul is going to teach to us this evening. In the desert of sorrow and sin, lo, I faint as I journey along, with the warfare without and within. See my strength and my hope nearly gone. I thirst, let me drink of the life-giving stream, let me drink. 'Tis a rock cleft for me, 'tis the water of life. In my weakness I turn to the fount, from the rock that was smitten for me, and I drink and I joyfully count all my trials a blessing to be. I thirst, let me drink of the life-giving stream, let me drink. 'Tis the rock cleft for me, 'tis the water of life. O thou God of compassion, I pray, let me ever abide in thy sight. Let me drink of the fount day by day, till I join thee in mansions of light. I thirst, let me drink of the life-giving stream, let me drink. 'Tis a rock cleft for me, 'tis the water of life.
Well, once again, we welcome you to our class this evening. We are thankful for your presence, and I hope we're all learning something. I'm going to tell you, I'm learning something every time I prepare for this class. And this is our 12th lesson in the series, The Apostle Paul and His Missionary Journeys. When we ended last week, the Jews in Thessalonica had stirred up trouble. They had stirred up a mob and to come against Paul and his group. And they attacked the house of Jason. Evidently, that's where Paul and Silas and Timothy were staying in Thessalonica. They came and attacked the house, but they couldn't find Paul and Silas and Timothy. So they grabbed Jason and some other brethren and drugged them before the rulers of the city known as the politarchs, which we talked about in our lesson last week. They accused Jason and others of harboring criminals. They said that they were disruptive and causing all kinds of problems, things that would not be approved by the Roman government. And is basically, boy, what a change in voice. Well, I'll get my thoughts back in a minute. It's enough to scare me. Jason and the others were able to post bond, and they were released, which, again, I think is very interesting. It's almost like they got off very easy, considering what had happened to Paul and Silas and other places. But they seem to have gotten off easy. And we finished our study at the end of Acts chapter 17, verse 9. So this evening we'll pick up in verses 10 through 15, which I think we read at the end of class last week, but we'll go ahead and read them again. So I hope you'll open your Bibles to that text as we study together for just a few more minutes. Then the brethren immediately sent Paul and Silas away by night to Berea. When they arrived, they went into the synagogue of the Jews. And now verse 11, which you hear every Sunday morning. These were more fair-minded or noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness and searched the Scriptures daily to find out whether these things were so. Therefore many of them believed, and also not a few of the Greeks, prominent women as well as men. But when the Jews from Thessalonica learned that the word of God was preached by Paul at Berea, they came there also and stirred up the crowds. Then immediately the brethren sent Paul away to go to the sea. But both Silas and Timothy remained there. So those who conducted Paul brought him to Athens, and receiving a command for Silas and Timothy to come to him with all speed, they departed. Well, we don't know what all went on behind the scenes there in Thessalonica, but the brethren somehow were able to keep Paul and his party away from the mob. And then under the cover of darkness, they sent Paul and Silas away to Berea. It's interesting, there's no mention made of Timothy in that departure, and yet Timothy's going to reappear in Berea down in verse 14. Now, the threat of the mob action that they felt there in Thessalonica didn't affect Paul and Silas very long, because when they got to Berea, which was only 45 miles away, like their custom always was, they went to the synagogue and started doing what they had done there in Thessalonica. However, they found a more receptive group, because these Jews were more fair-minded, eugenes. It originally referred to people of what we would say noble birth, and later it came to be used for the qualities that were expected of a person of noble birth. And I found that particular wording from the United Bible Society's Translator's Handbook. Synonyms such as open-minded or receptive would probably capture the meaning for us. These were more fair-minded than those in Thessalonica, and it raises a question, well, why? And it's because they eagerly received the word and searched the Scriptures, the graphe, and we talked about that in the last couple of lessons, that it referred to the Old Testament Scriptures. They searched the Scriptures daily to verify that what Paul and Silas had told them was true. As a result of their study, therefore many of the Jews believed, as well as not a few Greeks, and it's interesting, it says comprised of some prominent women as well as men. I think some think that the prominent women means that they were wives of some of the leaders in the city of Berea. And you look at that and you think, well, what an encouraging missionary report there in Berea. But it didn't last long. Like the Jews from Antioch and Iconium who stirred up trouble in Lystra back in chapter 14, these Jews from Thessalonica came to Berea to do the same. The text simply said that the Jews heard that Paul was preaching the word down in the Word of God in Berea, and it's hard to look at what these Jews do and come away with anything positive. They just didn't want their boat rocked. I don't think it had anything to do with doctrine. I don't think it had anything. They were just mean-spirited. Is the best thing I can come up with. because of the way they did things and stirred up trouble. Well, when these Jews got the crowd so stirred up in Berea, then the brethren sent Paul away by sea, we believe, to Athens. But Silas and Timothy remained there in Berea. And so when the brethren got Paul safely there to Athens, then they came back home, and Paul had sent word with them, said, you send Silas and Timothy back to me as soon as you can. Verses 16 through 18. Now while Paul waited for them at Athens, his spirit was provoked within him when he saw that the city was given over to idols. Therefore he reasoned in the synagogue with the Jews and with the Gentile worshippers, and in the marketplace, the Agora, daily with those who happened to be there. Then certain Epicurean and Stoic philosophers encountered him, and some said, what does this babbler, Spermologos, want to say? Others said, he seems to be a proclaimer of foreign gods, daimonion. And I hope I can remember to mention that word again. If you hear it, daimonion, it's the source of our word demon. So they're saying, he seems to be a proclaimer of foreign. They would probably not say demons, but deities of some sort. Because he preached to them Jesus, Jesus, and the resurrection, anastasis. And that's going to become very important in a minute. As I look at this text, the first part of it, do we ever get sick at our stomachs when we see horrible things going on in our world? And you nod, yeah, we do. I think we get pretty nauseous sometimes when we see some of the horrible things that people do, especially do to one another. It's very sickening. And I think for Paul, who had this mission to preach the gospel to the Gentile world, to walk into this city of Athens and see them just overcome by idol worship, it would be a great disappointment, a very daunting audience to be looking at, but that's what the Apostle Paul said. So his spirit was provoked within him. Paul was the type of guy, he couldn't just sit there. He couldn't sit idle and do nothing. So he reasoned with the Jews and the God-fearing Gentiles in the synagogue like he normally did, but he also went down into the marketplace, the Agora, every day and tried to reason with anyone there who would give him an audience. And here he met with some Stoic and Epicurean philosophers. Epicureans, they taught men to seek as their highest aim a pleasant and a smooth life. Have a good time in life. Their philosophy is quickly summed up, I believe, at the end of 1 Corinthians 15, verse 32, or as we know it, eat, drink, and be merry. Just enjoy life while you can. And the Stoics, on the other hand, were founded by Zeno in the early 3rd century BC. They take their name from the Greek word for the porch or the colonnade, where Zeno taught. That in Greek, that word is stoa. I like David Roper's definition of Stoicism from the Truth for Today commentary. And the reason I like it is when you start reading about Stoic philosophy, it gets rather lengthy. Epicurean's pretty quick, but when you start reading about Stoic philosophy, it gets rather lengthy, and I think David Roper summed it up pretty tersely as you could. And I quote, "Stoics believed in duty as the highest good. They emphasized self-discipline and a denial of the flesh. Regarding religion, Stoics were materialistic pantheists. God to them was an impersonal force permeating everything in the universe. They believed that fate determined everything in their lives and that they should be resigned to accept whatever happened. End of quote. We often say someone had a stoic look, just kind of a dead, expressionless. Even though something horrible had happened, they show no emotion. That's kind of our view of Stoicism, and it kind of matches what they believed. In philosophies, the Epicureans and Stoics were opposites. They were opposite ends of the spectrum, and yet they're the two groups that confront Paul there in the marketplace. Some of them disparaged Paul by referring to him as a babbler, spermologos. I'm sorry.
If I remember correctly, did the Epicureans not believe in the human soul? I think they didn't believe in the afterlife.
You get too deep.
Well, that's why they wanted to live it up now, because they couldn't live in the afterlife. And I just noticed, that reference to resurrection. That probably would have caught them off guard.
Oh, it gets even better.
Right. Sorry.
I'm a person who, I'll dig into something, but I don't spend a lot of time with learning about, like, denominations. If you ask me what some of them believe, I couldn't tell you. I just don't focus my attention there, so I didn't dig any deeper on the Epicureans. But we'll come back to that resurrection in a minute, because it is important. But this spermologos, babbler, the word means a seed picker. And it came up from birds in the marketplace picking up scraps. And so they applied it to someone trying to be a philosopher or a teacher who would pick up little items, tidbits from other teachers, and then try to sell it as their own preaching, their own philosophy. And basically they were charlatans, is what in the Pillar Series commentary David Peterson calls them, religious charlatans, which is probably a good way to put it. So anyway, these philosophers were wondering what Paul was trying to say, while others thought he was proclaiming foreign gods or strange demons, as we mentioned, demons or supernatural beings. Now, as they looked at that and said he's proclaiming strange gods, they had it that one of them was named Jesus and one of them was named the resurrection. And so that's why I put in Iesus, the Greek for Jesus, and the resurrection, anastasis. To them, they looked at anastasis as a goddess, because Iesus was a masculine and anastasis was a feminine gender. And so we had a god and a goddess, and to them, man, what a perfect duo for Greek paganism. And so when we read this, we don't see that. We just say, oh, they think it's funny. He's talking about a resurrection. They think he's talking about some deity, that Jesus and the resurrection are two deities, a god and a goddess, which I found very interesting. Now, what that does, it makes Paul a polytheist like they are, which is another kind of an interesting sidelight. Verses 19 through 21. That was what I was going to say, Tim, about the resurrection. And they took him and brought him to the Areopagus, saying, "May we know what this new doctrine is of which you speak? For you are bringing some strange things to our ears. Therefore, we want to know what these things mean. For all the Athenians and the foreigners who were there spent their time in nothing else but trying to tell or hear some new thing. Well, there's a lot of confusion as to what actually took place in the first part of verse 19, because Areopagus referred both to a hill in between the Acropolis and the marketplace, the Agora, and the esteemed courts which derived its name from the meeting on this hill. So Areopagus could refer to the hill, or the Areopagus could refer to the group, to the council that met. And so there's a little confusion. It's further complicated because the two verbs took and brought, can both be rendered arrested. Both of those words in Greek can be translated arrested, and they are in various places. So that makes it confusing. Did they arrest Paul? Did they drag him? And what's another interesting sidelight is the same terminology, using forms of these same verbs. They were used when Paul and Silas were brought before the magistrates in Philippi in Acts 16, verses 19 and 20. After Paul rebuked the slave girl and got the demon out of her, that's what they do. They grabbed Paul and Silas and dragged them. It was a violent action, if you will. And so when we read this in Acts, we don't know whether this was a violent action, if they were arrested, exactly what's going on just from the text up to this point. The Areopagus is formed by two Greek words, Arios and Pagos, and it simply means hill or rock of Ares, and Ares was the Greek god of war. Most of us older folks grew up with Mars Hill, which is the Latin or the Roman god of war, Mars. So you have Ares in Greek and Mars in Latin or in Roman. In the first century, this court or this council, the Areopagus, sometimes met on the hill, and sometimes they met down in the marketplace, or the Stoa in the marketplace. And either one would fit this passage. However, the context, as we continue reading, seems to fit that Paul was invited to speak before the council, to speak before the other Athenians and foreigners as an informal inquiry. And they begin by curiously asking to learn what this new doctrine of Paul's was, because it was strange to them. They had never heard anything like this, so they were kind of curious about it. And verse 20 seems to confirm that Paul was not being formally tried before the court, but rather satisfying the curiosity of those present. Now, what I want to do, I want to give you a short tour around the Acropolis and the Areopagus. Let's step down and point. Hopefully you realize that's the Parthenon on top of the Acropolis. That is the Nike temple on the Acropolis. Can't have it on? It's not working. Well, can I do the handheld? Oh, it's not down there. I'm sorry, Richard. I thought it was going to feel my arm. I was trying to ease it up. Tell you what, come on out. Stand right here. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm not good with my. Okay, there's the Acropolis in Athens, Greece. Parthenon. If you've never been to Nashville to see the Parthenon, go see it. I'd seen it when I was a little kid when it was decorated for Christmas, and I've driven by it, but I'd never actually gone into it. It is fascinating. To see Athena is just, man, what a big girl she was. It's amazing to see that. Whew. And there's the Nike temple. They've been working on this. When I first saw it, they've done a lot of work on it. This down here is the marketplace, or the agora, and this is the Greek marketplace. Now, the Greek marketplace was not where they were meeting now. The Greek marketplace had kind of gone into ancient history. This is the Areopagus. This is Mars Hill. And so we're looking from the marketplace up maybe 300 feet, and then a little less than 300 feet on up to the Parthenon. And this is looking east. We're looking east up the Acropolis. This is where you go in. Buses and cars parked down here. All the little salespeople are down here trying to get you to buy postcards and coins and all this kind of stuff. And you go up through here, up by the temple of Nike, and then you go on up through the Acropolis to the Parthenon. When I first went there the first time, there were just a few columns standing. They have really done a lot of work on putting this Parthenon back together. So when I see pictures today, I see a different place than I went up. But I do remember this is the way we went up, was through the steps there. Let's see. Now we're looking northwest, I think, from the Acropolis down to Mars Hill, the Areopagus. This area right here is the old Greek marketplace. There's the ruins right there of the old Greek marketplace. And here is Mars Hill, and you can see some people on top of Mars Hill, or the Areopagus. And then the next one, here's a close-up. It's just a big rock. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's a big rock, and they actually met on that hill. And there's a lot of history behind that particular hill, why it became known as the Hill of Ares. He was tried there and vindicated. But anyway, that just gives you a close-up view of this rock. Over here in the corner, we're going to see this in just at the end of these slides, but this is kind of the entrance where you go in and go up on the rock. I've never been there. I've looked down at it, but I've never actually stood on it. I wish I could. That'd be a good place to go. Let's go to the next slide, Richie. Yeah. Here's the ruins of the old Greek marketplace. This is known as the Stoa of Attalus. Attalus was a ruler who had this built. The first floor now is a museum, and the second floor is the American School of Archaeology that has been digging in this place since the 1930s. That's how long they've been excavating there. This is a Greek Orthodox church, the Church of the Holy Apostles, I think is the name of it. It was built originally in 1020 AD, and they say it's been beautifully restored, and as you look at it, it looks like it has. And then over here to the right is where the Roman marketplace is. And the Roman marketplace is where the scenes with Paul and the marketplace and the Areopagus would have taken place, not in the Greek place, but in the Roman part over here to the right. This particular one, I want to say it was like 3rd century AD, so it wouldn't have been there, yeah. But there would have been others on the other side, yeah. I'm sorry. Only got 3 hands. The question was when this stoa was built, and I can't remember for sure, but I want to say it was in the 3rd century AD. But this ruler named Attalus from a totally different place, but he built it. But there would have been other stoas there in the Roman area where they would have met. The reason I show you this picture, this internal picture of the stoa, remember when we read the book of Acts and the early church met in Solomon's porch? It would have been something like this. Probably had a covering over it, a lot of columns. It was a big area. When we talk about Solomon's porch in the temple area, it was a big area. So I just thought this picture would be neat to kind of see what Solomon's porch might have looked like. I think I'm going to have to get another picture. Yeah, this is the western gate to the Roman Forum. Let me get my next page. And then the next slide, Richie, there we go. This is looking well. This is that western archway, the western entrance. And this is the ancient Roman Forum. And then the next slide is the eastern entrance to the Roman Forum. This is the Tower of the Winds. I don't know all the things, but there's the 8 winds. If anybody knows the mythology or something, I don't. But that's what that tower is. And then the next thing is, there's the Tower of the Winds. This is looking from the other direction of the Roman Forum. And the Acropolis would be over here to the right or to the south of this picture. I hope that was beneficial. I love looking at slides of these places, especially the ones where I've been. That's really neat. I was fortunate. Uncle Sam gave me a free tour to Athens on 2 occasions, so I got to go to the Acropolis twice. Once to see the sunrise. I thought the guy was crazy. The pilot said, "Hey, we got to get up if we're going to see the sunrise over the Acropolis." I thought he was kind of crazy, but I was glad he did, and that I got to see the sunrise over the Acropolis. Let me show you the last slide. David Roper, in his commentary, points out, said, the original Athenians weren't too impressed with Paul's sermon on Mars Hill. But that bronze plaque there is Paul's sermon. They put the words of his sermon there, which is kind of interesting, kind of ironic that they did that and preserved his sermon there on Mars Hill. Just kind of a curious thing. Well, that's good. I won't read these next 10 verses because they're pretty long. I put this whole section, his sermon, as one section. So we'll pick up next week with Paul's sermon on Mars Hill. Thank you for your attention this evening.